Hi, welcome to SubCity Tutorials. Today we'll be looking at the new Synth by Vengeance Sound, which is called Avenger. Currently beta testing this at the moment and absolutely loving it. So what I'll do is I'll show you part of the intro and break it down bit by bit, and you can see what's going on. Do first is take a look at the pad that I'm using. So in the intro, so here it is, it's Magic Forest. So here it is without all my effects on it and all my plugins, sorry. So there we are. It's obviously got reverb on it already, which is here, which is the Arts Acoustic Reverb, which is my favourite reverb. It's also got an equaliser as well, boost and low end. I have actually tweaked it with these. As you can see, it's labelled up with timber, flyaway, dry, wet. I've set that to my liking. So also on this window here, as you can see, if you right click, it takes you to the page that's actually been affected. So if you want all the effects off, just click this button here, it turns all the effects off. If you're not sure what all the effects are, you can right click and it takes you to the window and shows you what's going on. You can also do that with the master filter, which is currently off. So you can right click, it takes you to the master filter, and you can obviously do the filtering you want. This is fully automatable as well. So we're not using it at the moment. So what I'll do is I will show you my notes, which is here. I'll play it and I'll show you what I'm adding one by one into the channel strip. So what I've added first is the UAD Valley Dynamite, which brings up the reverb. So if I stop playing that, you can hear all the reverb. So without it, it's not as pronounced. So what it's got on there, it's clipping as well, which I quite like. It saturates it as well, so it's bringing it out, and also you can see if it's too much reverb, so you can dial it back, so it brings it out at the beginning, so I know exactly how to manipulate it. So I'll play that. Obviously I've got the kick start, which is side chaining it, which is obviously making the way for the kick. So with the kick, so I'll turn it off. You can obviously hear it adds a lot of grooves as well to it, which is nice. I've got the DSP 420 Retro EQ, which is taking off all the low end, because obviously I don't need it, and it's taking off the tops as well, just the highs, so I don't need that. And also I've got my own filter on there, which is the Creative Sonicist filter, which is obviously bringing it in gently, so I'll play that. So that's obviously coming in nice and slow. I also use this plugin later on in the break, but I'll get to that in a bit. So that's the pad I'm using. So what we'll do now is take a look at the tambourine that I'm using. I got this from the sequence page, which is Tropical 1, and then manipulate it to what I like, how I liked it. So as you can see, it's the close hi-hat 1. Here's the original. So it's actually a sequence, and you can obviously hear what it sounds like and think, oh, I like that kick, pull it all out, etc, etc. So what I did was I deleted all these off. I didn't need these just to save CPU, and then I found what I liked and then soloed it. You can't delete the last one, but that's okay. So mute that, play it, and then it's this one here, so silence that. You can actually add your own WAV files to all this as well and use the sequencer as you like, which is fantastic. So edit that, you can do what you want to it, so you can obviously make it come in, cut it off, stuff like that. You can make it spike, change the volume, high pass, low pass, and then obviously you can change where it hits. You can add more in, etc like that. So that's what I've used. And also, as you can see, it's actually got an S1 reverb rather than the effects. This is actually doing as a send, which I love. So it's a send rack rather than a master effects. So you actually still get the dry signal, which I absolutely love, which is brilliant. But I'm not actually currently using that. I just thought I'd mention it. So here it is playing, and what I've done is I added Arts Acoustic with my own preset, which I absolutely love. Arts Acoustic Reverb. Put the retro EQ back on, cut the highs, cut the lows, a little bit of a gain, not much. Also using the Logic sample delay, which obviously you can send it here, it sends it proper wide, and then I'm using the precision limiter just to keep it all in order. So that's for that. So alright, we'll have a look at the main clap now, which is that, which I'm using Phalanx for, but again by Vengeance Sound. Absolutely love this thing. I've got 2 different samples loaded up. That's just playing. Also, I'd like to mention that these are out of time, they're not on the beat. I prefer it being off, it adds a bit more of a groove to it. So if I play it with the kick and then put it in time, just takes something away. I just don't like it, so I like it being off like that. I find it a bit more groovy. And then what I've got is the Britson channel, which is just it's basically trying to gain stage it a little bit. I'll talk about that later. And then I've got my favourite reverb, which is the Arts Acoustic. As you can see, it's added a lot of depth. Then I've got this sample delay again, spreading it really wide. I've got the UAD just to tame it a little bit. And again, obviously I've got the retro EQ, just cutting the low, cutting the highs again, just to get rid of it, you don't need it. And then just the waves ultra maximizer, which is just adding a bit of just stabilizing it a little bit. So that's it together like that. So that's that. So closed hi-hat, it's just a standard closed hi-hat. So that's on the offbeat, obviously. So that's that part. And then what I've done is I had a loop of hi-hats, which I just added. Again, I've put a sample delay on it, which has, so also I put a fade on there, so it slowly comes in. I put the sample delay on there as well, so it just sends it wide. I like the sound of it. I also got the kickstart again on it, so it's what draws away from the kick. So that's that. Obviously you've heard the pad, so the vocal lead I'm using, I'll show you it properly later. I'm just showing you the beginning notes. So what I'm doing is automating little Autoboy mix. So it's actually format -12 format, -12 pitch, and then obviously the mix is getting less and less. There we are, which I find quite nice. So that's that bit. So done the hats on the seat high, yep. And then what we have here is obviously the bass. I'll go into that later. It's just basically being cut off at the start, nothing special. And then obviously we've got vocal snippets going across here. I'll also go through obviously the vocal later. Here we have just a vocal loop that is basically just, I had one sound, and what I did was I put on the BPS delay and then just did the feedback and then just bounce it down basically, and it had that effect, which is pretty nice. Also got other effects which I'll also go into later. I've also got this here as well, which is just another synth I use and bounce it down. What we'll do now is take a look at the main vocal part. I'll start with the bass line. I've turned everything off the channel, so I'll solo that, play it. So basically I'm using the organ and Robin. You've got some presets already here ready to go. So on this one here, it will add sub or take it away, as you can hear, so you can change that about. There's a click sample here, just for a bit of a snap on it. You can also add more by turning up the spike if you want to punch through the mix. I'm quite happy with how it was before. You can actually do a stereo spread here, as you can hear, which I don't want. You generally try and keep bass mono. And obviously you can see here it's already pre-programmed to do a cut-off, so the first stab's more pronounced. The portmanteau is here, so you've got poly, legato, poly, legato, and then you've got the time here, so you've got, and that's all automatable as well. So there's the bass. So what I've added to the bass, I've got the Wow 2 on it by Sugar Bites. What I would strongly recommend is getting your level the same with the plugin on and off. So for example, if I take that off, it's obviously quite with the plugin on it's louder, so I'll turn that down, so I'll match it, because sometimes it actually sounds better because it's louder. So obviously adding that is taking away quite a lot of bass, so we'll have a look at that in a second. So yeah, so that sound, I like that sound of that on there. I would also recommend playing it with another instrument, and then bypassing it that way. So that actually brings it out quite a lot, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm using the Maserati B72 to add the bass back, which we lost from adding the WoW 2. Got the channel setting again as well for gain staging, although I haven't done much gain staging on that. Got the effects tricks just for the pitch drop on the end of the note. I've got the kickstart, which is obviously for, I quite like it in without a kick sometimes, just to give it a bit more of a groove. There we are. I'm using the Waves API, which again, if you do any settings, bypass it and get the levels right, so you can actually hear the difference. See, I quite like that. So when you bypass it, it's not just adding, it's not taking the volume away. And I'm using UAD Fatso Junior, which is sort of gripping hold of it, getting the levels correct, so they're not all over the place. With bass, I generally try and sort of get it without any dynamic range, so it's just one level constantly. And then obviously got the Pro Q2. So with the Pro Q2, get rid of the sub, which you're not using obviously. I noticed there was a bit of rumble here and resonance, so I took that away, and also took away the tops, which is not there anyway. It's just protection, and then use a precision limiter again, just to control it. And then I've got the creative filter. That's just for the beginning. Obviously there, and then I'm using the BX control, so I'm actually making it mono from 288 below. So basically you want all sub and anything low in mono. So there we are. And then also I put a gate on there as well, just because it's, all the effects are creating a bit of a noise at the end. So as you can hear, it's sort of a sidechain noise, so I've just used that just to get rid of that, to clean that up. So here's the plucked droplet, is what I'm using. I'll show you what it sounds like. I'll show you the notes quickly. So the bottom notes here are basically the same as the bass line, and then obviously I'm just doing a chord with different notes on top, which is that. So there's effects on there as well, so I'll take those off. So I'll put the AA reverb back on, I'll put the delay back on so you can hear that. Equalizer, just cutting the bottom off, and then the bit crusher is adding top end on it. I'll go on to show you this. So on all of these, you have a voicing tab, which basically you can add more. You can add an octave, either way. So you can add a high octave or a low octave, or no octave, but it will add fatness to sound. So basically, I'll take these off quickly, and then I'll add them back. So that's -12. So that's an octave. Let's fatten that up. There's 0 octave, which is obviously just again fatten the sound up, and then high octave. So I like that, that's very good. And then I'm adding the UAD dynamite, as you can hear, it blows the sound right up, brings all the delay out. It's also adding a bit of saturation from the clipping. So again, I like to hear what it's going to sound like before I start mixing it. It's got the kickstart on there, sidechain, but nothing on there because it's mix set to 0. I'm not using it currently. I've got the effects rack with the Filter Freaks by Sound Toys, which is cutting the lows off, doing a little bit of EQing, making it a bit brighter, quite like that. I've got the Pro Q2, just taming a few frequencies. So what I like to do with that is, what I like to do is whistle to the sounds, so I can hear a, so what I'll do is I'll whistle it and then pick it out, so I'll find it there. Also, what you can do is you can obviously go slowly through it, find any problematic frequencies, and then bring them down, cut them out. What's good about this is basically if you cut anything out, it automatically changes the gain to put it back in. So if you cut all the bottom out, you can hear what it sounds like without it, so it doesn't sound very nice. So I've just only taken the subtle bit out the bottom. There it is, back in. Again with the retro EQ, tops and bottoms taken off. I'm using a limiter, sorry, not the limiter, I'm using the octave inflator, which is again bringing it more out, it's adding a bit of coloration to it. It's clipping, which I quite like. And then the L3, just lean and mean, and it's just taming the peaks. Right, let's go into the vocal. So here we are.
Let me take you for
So what I started off with was Melodyne. I strongly recommend Melodyne it before starting. So what I did was recorded it in, highlighted it all, put it into time with the groove reference, and then also I did the pitch. It will know what key it's in, and it automatically snaps to that grid. And then I just centered it and did the drift, did it all, so nothing's going out. And then bounce it down. And then what I've added to that is I've added the Nectar 2. So actually I'll get rid of all this. Right, and then play it about it.
Let me take you for a ride.
So obviously this is still activated.
So
that's without. What I've done is I added a harmony to it.
Heart's beating like a drum.
So as you can hear,
tonight.
added a fifth and a third to basically pan it left and right a little bit, just to fatten the sound up a bit. There's a compressor on it, just to tame it, a delay, and a bit of modulate on there. And then I've added the UAD stirred up, saturation. What I'll do is I'll put the reverbs back on and the delay, and then add it.
Let me take you for a ride.
Just beefs it up.
Dancing with the lights. Our hearts beating like.
It's more prominent with it on, so I use that. Obviously use de-esser, because every time you add EQ, it will generally add hissing to it.
Let me take
so sidechain that so you hear it taken out. So I'm happy with that. And then EQ'd. So obviously we've got problem frequencies here and there. And then another one. So I've cut out quite a bit here, so you can hear. Got a whistle there. And then what I've done as well, I've got UAD Telephonics, which is basically just taming it even more. So there's no dynamic range in that. And then I've added the inflator. Again, it brings it to life. And again, I've added the gate on that. Just to get rid of any nonsense down below. There we are. So put that in together.
Dancing with the light.
Turn it off.
Our hearts beating like a drum tonight. Let's
You can hear how far that is.
crazy, my baby. Dancing with the light.
And then for the reverb, I've got Valhalla on there.
Let me take you for
And again, the Arts Acoustic reverb.
dancing with
So that's only subtle, the Valhalla.
our hearts beating like a drum tonight.
And then I've added backing onto this as well.
Let me take you
So
for could chase the sun tonight.
what I've done there, I've put a de-esser on there. Copied the same settings from the other track. Arts Acoustic reverb, just different setting for it, so it's just the same reverb. And then just cut out problematic frequencies again. And they actually play through the beginning as well. More towards the end. Also what I've done is I've added a -12 on there as well. Just like that. So play it together with the backing. So it's doing tonight.
Let's go crazy, my baby.
I've got a little Auto Boy on that. Doing the pitch and format. Sorry, yeah, format. Again, just cutting the highs and lows out. It's quite subby. And then again, Arts Acoustic reverb. Same setting as the backing. And then sample delay just to send the sound left and right. Didn't mention this before, but the bass line obviously has been cut off there. So it's slowly coming in. It comes in. I'll show you the synths now. So a couple more synths coming up. start with this one. So I've just turned everything off on this. So basically this is the same notes as the pluck above. So I'll just play that. So that is Pluck's Tropical Square. I've added bit crushing and distortion to it. It's also got a reverb as a send. Obviously you can hear that it should be plucked, but I've messed around with the ADSR on this and the cutoff. I'll just extend the cutoff. It's quite a nice synth, quite a nice pluck. So yeah, again I've added the UAD. So when this actually, obviously it's clipping when it comes out. So what I do is I put on the channel strip. So I take quite a lot away. So it's below 0 dB on this meter. So anything that's after it won't clip, and you won't get any digital clipping. So I've added this, just taking off the highs. I've got the waves exciter, just bringing back a bit of more depth on that. Sorry, a bit more high on that. Again, cutting it off again. Don't know I did that. And then the inflator, adding a bit of colour, making it a bit louder. The ultra maximizer, again, just taming the peaks and add a bit more volume to it. And then cut off filter there. That's what that sounds like. I've done it in 2 octaves, so that's in the lower octave. And then here's my ARP. So what I've done for this, I'll turn everything off. That's what it sounds like. So obviously got portmanteau on that. So that's Pluck's UK Pikes. Got a bit of reverb on it. Bit of delay on there. Yeah, and that's on the send rack. So I'm actually using the complete controls ARP for that. Right, I'll show you what I've got on it. So I've got the Wow 2, I've got the channel strip just to take get the levels out, and then show Q, highs and lows again. Some delay, send it really left, right, left and right. Later, just for coloration, and then this is 10 peaks. So just a quick tip. So I never mix in solo. What I'll do in solo is basically pull out any problematic frequencies, and I will look for any resonating frequencies. On this sound, it sounds fine. So, for example, what I used to do was I used to add stuff to it, say exciter or something like that, and so that sounds much better like that. But if you have no reference point, you won't know if that sounds good or not. It sounds good to your ears without anything playing around it, but you might have it too bright, it might be too quiet. So I always recommend having the main elements playing and then adjusting it accordingly. It sounds good there, but that's not doing much, so I'll put that off. Another pro tip as well is I always have a GoPro recording my keyboard and my hands and part of my screen. So if I ever, while I'm writing a melody, if I ever hit a note and forget which note I've hit, I'll go back and I will play my video I've recorded with my hand and then copy it straight to my computer. So I'll never do something by accident. If I ever do anything by accident, I'll always have it a copy, so I can always copy it. So what I'll do now is I'll show you what I've done in the main drop. So what I'll do is I'll play the first to lead up to it. So basically, I've got the same pluck as before, and the bass. The bass is doing the same what was doing the vocal part, and I've added some other elements to it. So we've got super saw, and another sort of sawy pulse width sound. So I'll show you the first one, which is super saw, which is the super electric. I've actually manipulated this into my sound. Again, I've added the voicing tab. So what I've done is I've added the voicing to fatten it up. So take it away. It's added a bit more of a pluck. Quite nice. I've added an arts acoustic reverb. I've done it as a master effects and delay I've added to that. I've also you can actually pan these left and right. So if you've got an octave, you can actually pan them, which obviously gives you more of a stereo spread, or you can just obviously spread it here, which I've done there. And then on top of that, so let's just do that dry again, just for argument's sake. So again, and again the channel strip, kickstart, added the Pro Q, taming problematic frequencies. So it's a bit bright, so I just took the tops off, didn't need them. So you obviously can hear problems there, that's fine, so I've cut all that out. Retro EQ, cut the bottom tops off again. Again, octave limiter, sorry, inflator, and then the wave limiter. The pulse width sounding one. So this is the Swede chords. So again, I've added the octave on top, just to fatten it up a little bit. It's got the reverb as a send, so it sounds like dry. So I've added the valley again, kickstart. So I've added a neutron to this one, which is the isotope, which dynamic EQ on the low, boosting around the 4K and cutting around the 2K. And then I've added Pro Q. Obviously you can tell from where I've cut, it sounds much brighter, and then there's problematic frequencies here. So again, so you can whistle them, or you can just go through like a boost and then slowly go through until you hear something. So you're looking for a whistle. So yeah, you're looking for a whistle. So and then obviously when you find one, cut it out. Just do it a little bit, not too much. If you do too much, then it'll take away from the sound. And then cut the highs and lows off again. Inflator and limiter. So that's what it sounds like. So it's a bit more epic. And then this is the held sound here, which I've got a sound shifter on, which I'm using the rise as well. Just like to point out that the saws are doing the same notes as the pluck, the same notes, and it's obviously the same low notes, the bass line. Take a look at the main vocal lead, which sounds like this. Here's the notes for it. I'll just turn off all the channel. So I'm using phalanx for this. What I did was I loaded a snippet of my vocal into this, found an area I liked, and then looped it from there basically. So obviously you can see it's playing from that certain point. So what I've got on there, I've got portamento for a start, which is in this window here. So it's legato. And then I've got AA reverb again, not much, and I've got a bit crusher on there as well. And then obviously I've got the valley again, just to bring it out. Channel, gain staging, kickstart for the side chain. I've got de-esser on this, so this is cutting out the tops, as you can hear. Acoustic reverb, and then I have Pro Q, cutting the bottom out, Pro Q again, just cutting and boosting where I didn't like the sound. So obviously, again, like I said, do this in the mix. Cleans it up quite a bit. Got the Ozone Dynamic EQ. It's just sorting out around about 5k. It's just EQing it. And the problematic frequencies here, it's sort of like a de-esser. Got Little Alter Boy, which is obviously for the beginning, and then again I've got Retro EQ, cutting the bottoms and quite a lot of the highs, and I've got the inflator with the L3. Here's the kick I'm using for the main drop. I found it in Sequences Tropical 2. There's a WAV file. Like I said before, you can drag and drop your own samples into here. There's the drum sequence. Obviously it's forward to the floor. What I did with this is I pitched it up to make it be in tune with the track, so it's in the same key. So this is hitting at A, so that's in tune with the track. If you don't have it in tune, it can sound off, so I'd recommend always tuning your kick drums with the track in the same key as your track. What else have I got on here? I've got on here the Bryson channel. So again, with the gain staging, I've brought the levels down. All this does is just fix the levels, so it'll go quieter or louder, and I have it peaking at 0. Like I said to you before, gain staging is key with these plugins. If you are going in too hot with the plugins and clipping, you'll get digital distortion, and also the plugins won't work to their optimum level. So basically, I know for a fact that the UAD Teletronics compressor loves it when it's sitting at a right level, not too hot, not too cold, and it will work how it's meant to basically. So what I've done with the Oxford Transmod is I've just added a little bit of attack to it. So this will add attack, as you can hear, but I had it just for how I wanted it. Only problem I find with this plugin is when you add attack, it does take away from the low end. I don't know if you can hear the difference, but it's not as it's taking a bit of low end away. So what I do is I'll use the Pro Q. I'll get rid of all the bottom, which you don't need, and then with this plugin here, there's a button here you click, and then you can actually move the position to the note, so you can boost it here. So I know that's boosting at A1, which is 55 Hertz. So I know for a fact that's the same key as the also same note as the kick drum. And then what else I've got on there? I've got the the BX control, just monoing it again. Like I said before, just all subs should be in mono. And then here's the UAD VS2. So that's just adding a lot of snap and just controlling the kick drum. Again, it's sitting at its optimum level. It's not too hot, not too cold. And then what else I've got on here? I've basically got the same kick drum bounce down. What I've done is I've taken off all the bottom end, as you can see here. Pretty much the same. It's the same channel strip as before, but I've taken the bottom end off. So what this does is I've got more control over the snap. So I didn't think it was cutting through the mix enough. So what I did was I added this, only subtly. What that does is it punches through the mix much better. So if you I tend to find that helps cut through the mix. Again, all the stuff that I'm doing is quite subtle. Subtle was key basically. Don't do too much dramatic changes. It should all be subtle. So I'll just show you the break.
Dancing with the lights, our hearts beating like a drum tonight.
Play slowly coming in.
Let's go crazy, baby, dancing with the lights. Together we could taste
I'll break it down a bit. That's the ride loop. Sounds quite nice with just the clap and the ride loop and a little kick drum. So what we have on so it's a vocal, held vocal. Little quiet behind there, sitting there quite nicely. So that's using phalanx for that. And then what I've done is I've looped it here. So it's just that continuously playing. You should obviously use the switch that on there, then you set your parameters up, and it just loop. What I've done is I've waxed the reverb on there as well, because with the reverb it makes it doesn't sound like it's being looped. just make it so obvious. And then I've got the valley on there, just bring it out, gain staging again. I've got an isotope plugin, not doing much really. Side chain. I've got the vintage exciter, which actually just a subtle little boost. So it's boosting the highs. Again, like I said, don't do it solo, do it in the mix. And what actually this does as well is it cuts the lows out a little bit as well. So not only does it boost, it cuts all the rubbish out, which I quite like on that. Cutting the lows out again on that. And then I've got the the C1 gate, just to cut the reverb when it's not needed, and then just inflator again and a limiter. So basically the same vocal as what I had in the beginning. So what happens is,
Let me take you for a ride, dancing with the lights, our hearts beating like a drum tonight.
Come in.
Let's go crazy, my baby, dancing with the lights. Together we could taste the sun.
Minus 12 octave. Also have this little synth playing subtly in the background, and that sounds like this. Which is the plucked Sand and Sky. Don't believe I did any changes. I believe this is just in its normal form. I'll just reload it. A few subtle changes just to reverb and stuff. And I'll obviously turn the bit crusher on there as well. And you've got the valley on there. Gain staging. Pro Q just cutting the highs off and the lows. Vintage exciter, just subtly. The Arts Acoustic reverb, just make it really deep in the mix. Again, cutting the highs and lows off on that. Inflator again, just brings it to life. You actually got the effect on here, and then you got the curve. If you do the positive curve, it affects the highs. If you do the negative curves, it affects the lows. And also you got band split, which I quite like. Band split. You can bypass it, and you can also have it clipping. And then obviously the L3. Here is the whistle sounding synth that I'm using. I actually programmed this up in Avenger, and it's actually going to be released as a preset in Avenger when it's released as a factory preset, which is really good, made by myself. So I'll just quickly show you what it sounds like. All the channel strip settings are off. There's the notes. So what you've got there, you've got a power source is gently in the background, and then you've just got this sound here, which is basically just been frequency modulated. So it's basically this at 6%. That's what it's like without it. Quite simple but effective. And also with this synth you can undo stuff. So if you were doing any dramatic changes, you can undo them. But so you always know where you left off. And also you've got the you can actually change the size of the plugin, which is really good. Got like that. And then I'll just show you what's on the channel. Got the Valley, got Bryson, got the Maserati bass plugin, the B72, which is just basically cutting a bit of the treble off, compressing it a bit, and basically adding a little bit of gain. Got the Fab Filter Pro Q, which is cutting all the nonsense out. So you can hear some whistles and some horrible sounds I didn't want in there. Got the Arts Acoustic reverb, adding a lot of depth onto it. Got the DSP again, just cutting the highs and lows off. Inflator, obviously you can see it brings it to life. And then the L3. I'll show you what's going on the rise. So I have the effects going on the master fader. I'll show you in a minute. With a reverb and a low cut. Right, so I'll start off with the snare loop, which sounds like this. what I've done is cut the bottom and the tops off of that. So when it comes to samples, a lot of people say don't use samples, just do it yourself. But when I find sort of like kick samples, snare, and sort of loops like this, then I don't see why you can't use them. I probably wouldn't use musical loops. Obviously, that's not yours. So yeah, I might see what the problem is using samples. So here's the vocal, which has been pitched up in phalanx. Here is the white noise riser, which you've probably heard before in other songs. So I'll show you how I made that. It's just literally massive, just pure white noise and massive, bit of reverb, bit of EQ on it, nothing special. And I add the valley onto it. This is where obviously you can hear the start of it sounds from. That's the preset for it. I've added the Logic pitch. Obviously you can hear it pitching. Bit gain staging. Cutting the problem frequencies I didn't really like. Using the UAD Teletronics, which is taming it, just getting it to a certain level, and then the creative filter just adds a bit more energy. What I've done there is I've done it as a curve rather than straight up. That one as well. Here's the next rise. So on this one I've actually got the VAPS pitch shifter, which is quite nice. Also with this, I'm alternating the S1 imager, giving it a lot more stereo width, so it's going really wide as it's pitching. So I just found that quite nice. It adds a lot more energy, and then I've got the Arts Acoustic reverb on it. Adds a bit of depth, as you can hear. Just show you what's going on my master fader. A bit of automation and a few effects. Start off with the gain control. It's just a simple gain plugin, automating the volume, basically turning up the volume on the drop. So basically giving it more impact. As you can see here, it's -2 in the break. And then when the drop kicks, put the volume back in. So that's that bit. I have basically you can use any reverb. I'll just set this up as I liked it. Basically I just cut a few lows out on this, and all I'm doing is automating it from wet to dry. So I'll show you that quickly, and I'll show it with it and without it. So there's the automation. As you can hear, it's coming in. Taking a little bit oily. Sounds better for me. I'll do it without it. Just makes basically the drop sound more epic to me. And what else have we got here? I've got the channel strip. It's just a simple Logic channel strip. It's just automating the low end, just cutting off the lows. You can see it's cutting lows off. I'll bring it back early just to like the sub beat on there. Also, I generally just have a tuner on here just to hear what key certain elements are in, stuff like that. I tend to mix it into a limiter, but I've been told a few times not to, just because the levels go out. If you've got something too loud, it obviously control the rest of the song and bring the rest of the song quieter. So when you bypass it, all the levels are out. So I wouldn't recommend mixing into a limiter. What I'll do now is I'll show you the effects and how I'm using them. Here's basically a reverse synth, which basically leads into the main vocal area. So it's got an EMT reverb on there, and then a leveling amplifier, which is basically just taming the peaks, making the louder sounds quieter and the quieter sounds louder. And I'll show you how I made that. So what I did was I got the super saw, which I used later on in the track. Got the MIDI, put it over here, just cut the main first notes off. So basically the first notes. And then what I did was, as I bounced them down, actually also what I did was I added the Arts Acoustic reverb. do it first, then I bounce it down, so to show you that. So yeah, just basically just make it sound longer. So there it is. So that's it. What I do is I cut the first part off, cut the last part off, and then I reverse the sample, and then, as you can hear, so that's what I do to make reverse effects for that. So the other effects I did, and the rise is on the rides. I'll do one at a time. I'm using the sound shifter by Waves on that, just rising it up, and doing the same for the ride, the other ride. And then these basically end up going into the ending, the outro. So I'll just play that. So what I did here was basically exactly the same as the intro. The vocal lead, hell vocal, apart from the head vocals in that one. And then I've got some vocal stabs. Same kickers in the beginning, hats, and then comes into the rises coming up. That's the outro. What I'll do now is go into the mastering. Right, here is the final mix down. What I did was I sent it off to my master engineer, Anthony Chapman, and he sent me back all the channel strip, just so I can show you this on this tutorial. I strongly recommend getting it professionally mastered. Just if you spend a lot of time and effort doing the track, then you want it to be sounding the best it can, and you also get a second opinion, which is good. So starting with, he's put on the Pro DS, which is just basically isolating some problem frequencies. So it's just basically cutting that out of the mix. And then what he's done is he's put on the Pro Q2. So he's basically done a mid-side EQ on this, so he's cut off the sub, which you obviously don't need, and he's boosted the low levels. He has basically cut off the sides out of the low area. He has cut some of the sides out of the top end around about 15k. He's also added a bit of top end, a bit of sparkle there. He's also cut out around about 7k, and that's the standard. That's the overall. So the mid side, so the mid will be obviously the sub, and it will basically saying that he's boosted that in the mono, not in the stereo field, and then he's cut some of the stereo field out there, so it doesn't affect the mono, but it just affects the stereo. But the ones without anything on it means it's done the overall track. So yeah, so that's boosted there and there. He's whacked on the dynamics like that, just to tame it. So you can see it's doing a bit of work on there. I'll bypass the EQ, you can hear it. As you can hear, it's added a lot of low end, and it's done a lot of final processing to get rid of some of the rubbish in there, so the problem frequencies. And then what else has he got on there? He's got the dynamic EQ, that just brings out the kick, so I'll just play it. So it brings out the snap of the kick, so you can hear that predominantly. And then it's got the exciter on there, it's basically just affecting the low and the highs. And then he's got this plug in here, which is basically just boosting the 40k, which is basically the air, boosting that to basically make it sparkle a bit more. So I'll just quickly play that without anything on it. So obviously here it's cleaned up quite a lot, and then he's got the K clip on here, which is for level, so basically just to make it as loud as you can. So obviously it's a 6.5. Bypass that. And then he's just got the Pro L just to finish it off. A bit more level. As you can hear, it's much louder. It's got punch setting on there, the slow attack, quite quick release. So it's quite a big difference on that. So yeah, so that's it. So if you have any questions or anything, please leave them in the comments below. If you've liked it, please subscribe and watch out for some more tracks and tutorials by myself. Thanks very much. Thanks for your support and thanks for listening. If you'd like to buy my track, you can buy it from my website. The link is in the description.